So what I'm going to demonstrate here is how to apply a wrist fiberglass cast. The material you'll need is your fiberglass cast tape. We've got a 2-inch here because Sheena's, you generally don't need the 3-inch for a woman. We've got the Delta Dry water resistant padding, some micropore to secure your ends, some scissors, some water to set it at the very end, and some gloves to handle your synthetic material. So we're going to start by applying the 7.5 centimetre waterproof underpadding. You don't need a lot of overlap here. So we overlap by about 50%. Any more than that and you tend to get a bit too much bulk underneath your cast. So you want to make sure you've got good thenar coverage there. And again, you just want to make sure that your waterproof padding ends more proximal on the forearm and more distal at the MCPs than you want your actual casting material. So it looks quite high here, like it would impact on MCP flexion, but it actually doesn't matter at all for the underproof padding. You just want to make sure that it is a little bit 1 to 2 centimetres higher than you would the cast material. So I've applied a bit of micropore down the end there just to secure it. And now I'm going to pop some gloves on to handle the synthetic material. It is very sticky, so if you do get resin on your hand, it's quite hard to remove. And I'm using just the size 2 for Sheena here. It's just a wrist cast and she's not overly bulky herself as far as her muscle bulk. So starting through the wrist, we're going to make sure the material is winding away from us, not towards us, just to minimise how much tension you're putting on the material. We're making a little incision on that casting material to go through the web space. So you don't need to leave very much there. It's about 1 centimetre. And then I'm just going to roll those edges so that they're nice and smooth and they're not going to have some sharp edges that are going to impact on opposition of the thumb and cause a bit of irritation through there when she moves. So we're going to go around about 4 layers through the web space here, just making sure each time we're not adding too much bulk, by making sure that that web space layer isn't too thick. So about 1 centimetre is fine. So just cutting in line with the first ray of the thumb, folding your edges to make sure they're nice and smooth and they're not leaving any sharp edges that might irritate. And then coming back around. Correcting any, Sheena had just dropped into a bit of extension there, so we've just corrected that as we've gone. And we're doing a little bit of contouring through that distal palmar crease as we go. So moving down the forearm, you only need 1 to 2 layers, so we'll go down once and then come back up. Anything more than that at your proximal border will end up irritating the patient. And that was just a little bit messy there, so I've just tucked that little bit of padding up into the cast material and just caught it as we go, just to leave a nice smooth edge. So 1 to 2 layers, and then we're moving back up the forearm, and we'll finish with 1 more layer through the wrist. So just making that cut in line with the first ray, rolling your edges, making sure that the casting material doesn't come up too high and that you're going to restrict MCP flexion, and then just kneading it off with that last layer. So correcting my posture here, my patient's posture, just making sure I'm happy with the position they're in, making sure that they've got good MCP flexion. And then we'll just wet our hands, and that'll make the material set. Important to try and get a good sort of firm hold here. If it's the casting material is too loose, you will end up irritating the ulnar styloid. So it's actually quite good to be a little bit firm at this point. So that is how I would apply a fiberglass wrist cast. From here, I just want to check, whilst I've still got a bit of play in the material, that the patient hasn't dipped into any deviation or extension or position that I'm not happy with. So that looks pretty good. We've got about 5 minutes before it's pat dry and 20 minutes before it's firm enough to lean on. The other thing you just want to check here is that it's not too tight, so you can still fit a finger underneath. but they haven't gone, they've still got really good clearance through their MCPs, so they can kind of do a bit of flexion through their MCPs, and they can oppose to their index finger. So that's the main things I look for at the finish here. And then I would just send the patient home with a casting information sheet and let them know that if they become uncomfortable to contact us. And that's it.